So hi everyone, I'm really excited to be here. I guess I'm live. It took me 9 minutes to get here, but you know what? I am so excited to be with my scuba family, and I would love people to text in and say hi if you're watching. So I know I'm talking to more people than maybe just my cat. And anyway, it would be great to know. Thank you, Boris, for all the work you've put into this, and Jason and everyone else. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about the work that we're doing over at CSAVE with international meetings. It's a lot of people ask and they wonder, at the level of CITES and the United Nations, what are we doing? How does it actually affect our ocean and where we're diving, what we're seeing on our beaches here in California and elsewhere around the Caribbean, etc. And it is so critical, and I'm really excited to share what I'm seeing with you guys. Basically, let me just kind of read our passion statement over at CSAVE to kind of launch things, because it's really summates what we're doing. CSAVE Foundation stands witness to the health of the oceans and the threats that they face. We document problems and develop solutions and arm people with knowledge. Public as our ally, we then go to United Nations and other global bodies to affect international change. And we attend these meetings so we can offer creative, economically viable, sustainable, and environmentally friendly plans to decision makers. We make sure everyone is doing their best to meet their targets. So anyway, I think that sort of gives us, or kind of frames what it is that we are working so hard to accomplish. And I'm really super excited about that. And I'm going to launch with CITES, the Conference of International Trade of Endangered Species. I only have 20 minutes here, so I want to be sure, I get it all in. But basically, CITES is the Conference of International Trade of Endangered Species. And basically, that's exactly what it is. We're talking about the trade of endangered species, which, if you just take a minute to get your head around that, it just seems like there really shouldn't even be a conference discussing the trade of endangered species, but there is. And basically, what we try to do there is communicate to member countries why they need to list threatened and endangered species. We need to communicate why the science is pointing to the fact that these animals actually are endangered or threatened. And often that isn't as easy as it seems. If oftentimes we can't actually, or scientists can't find and count species numbers, then nations will counter with the fact that we don't have enough data because we haven't been able to count those animals. And that's extremely frustrating. So at CITES, or the Conference of International Trade of Endangered Species, we strive to convince nations to vote to put animals that we have deemed threatened or endangered on one of the appendices. That does not change in any way how a member nation treats the animals within their sovereign borders. However, it does mean that they're no longer able to freely trade that animal. And since most often the money is in international trade, one animal that's perhaps caught off the coast of Ecuador might be sold at market in Hong Kong or elsewhere around the world. So we need to work with all of these different parties to try to build a consensus as to why and how the animal needs to be appointed. We work with organizations that also enforce these international rulings and regulations. And that's obviously critical. Understanding how these regulations are going to be overseen, and are fines going to be enforced? Yes, indeed, there are fines that are attached to all of these appointments to the appendices. So CITES is a multinational treaty. It was signed in 1973 initially, and it protects animals around the world. Flora and fauna, so plants and animal species, currently protecting over 35,000 species. Our first experience was in Thailand in 2013. And I was so excited, and yet after the first hour of being at the meeting, I was really shocked at how much emphasis there was on marketing animals, that there were so few left in the wild. But at that meeting in 2013, we were able to rally and successfully had appointed scalloped hammerheads and their look-alike species, great hammerheads, smooth hammerheads, and also oceanic white-tip porbeagles and all manta rays. Those were all appointed to Appendix 2. So around the world now, you cannot sell these animals internationally. So that really put a chink in the value of selling, say, manta gill rakes or any of the shark fin products from any of those shark species. And now there are simple, inexpensive tests that we can use if someone argues that we can't tell the species from the shark fin. We actually can. So the next meeting we went to, and the preparation for this meeting requires the development of white papers and also understanding what the economic value is to different particular member states. We usually do spreadsheets where our sponsors are, where our friendlies are, and we know before we walk in who we are sure to get to support us, which is a great place to stop. I was just told I can stay a few minutes longer, so anyway, you guys are stuck with me for a little while. In 2016, which happened in South Africa, that was these meetings happen once every 3 years. So in South Africa, we were incredibly lucky to get all of the species that we set our minds to. We had included in our white paper, and that included thresher sharks, silkies, mobile arrays, cardinalfish, and also the chambered nautilus. So a short story about why CSAVE Foundation, as a very small grassroots organization, we can kind of change on the dime, and when we're presented with a problem, we kind of have the ability to think quickly and make a change or put in action something that could make a difference in a vote. It turned out that the nautilus, as many of you guys know what the nautilus is, because we're all divers, many of the voting parties didn't know what a nautilus was, and it's enigmatic for the ocean ecosystem. It's gorgeous, and it's sold everywhere as a souvenir, which is part of the problem, actually, the majority of the problem. So what we did before the vote was we quickly ran out to, it was in South Africa, so it was something similar to a Kinko's, and we just printed out sheets, nautilus. We wrote nautilus, a picture of what a nautilus was, and we were able to be quite naughty and talk the security guard into allowing us to go into the membered area and just place one sheet on each desk. And with that simple action, we were able to communicate what a nautilus was. So when that was brought to a vote, everyone knew what it was and what they were voting on. And that was incredibly important. And then most recently in 2019, we were once again in Geneva, lobbying there to protect guitarfish, wedgefish, and some species of sea cucumber, which are really endangered. Certain species, there are very few left. They're so easily caught, and there's such a huge market for those animals. More important, well, I guess a huger challenge and something we felt quite the victory was in the mako shark. Mako shark was one of the examples where there weren't as many of the sharks. There weren't enough sharks seen in some of the oceans, global oceans, that the argument against us listing the mako was that we didn't have sufficient data. So it seemed like a crazy discussion to be having, but we needed to convince the undecided states that the reason we could not present data was because we were not finding enough sharks. So it just seemed pretty obvious to us, but I guess not as obvious to the member states. That said, we won the discussion. Are listed Appendix 2. So again, any country can fish freely for any of these animals within their sovereign borders. However, they cannot trade. And that's a really important step towards protection of these animals. So I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions, or if anybody's out there, because I'm going to start talking about another international forum that we're involved with. We also are members of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Currently, we're extremely involved in number 14. So to kind of give you an overarching idea of what's going on with the United Nations, there is an overall plan that includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. And we are focused on number 14, which is life underwater. And there are a variety of measures that we are trying to implement before 2030. That's the date. CITES Foundation is working with a number of other organizations through a movement called RISE, because we believe that these efforts need to be realized before 2030. We need to kind of get a move on and start being a bit more aggressive in some of the work we're doing, cutting down plastic pollutions, trying to get people to stop using single-use plastics and going back to practices that were commonplace before, when we were so used to just getting a single-use plastic bag every time we went to market, etc. So these are all goals and programs that we're working to develop. In addition to which, there are other sustainable development goals that we are that we partake in, so that we're not only dealing with oceans. We are also interested in working with sustainable development goals for life on land. The women's empowerment goal, which we feel if we can communicate with women the importance of ocean conservation, and if we can talk to them and educate women around the world about what's happening with plastic pollution, especially at a micro level, then we can make huge strides, because now we've communicated and networked with the teachers and the leaders of families around the world, and that's key. That's key to us moving forward. So we also want to work with Sustainable Development Goal climate. Right now, that's a bit of a tough one for us to work with, because the United Nations is no longer a participant in that Sustainable Development Goal. But we still are trying to make inroads so that our voice can be heard, and we can participate in that very critical discussion. We don't want to not be at the table. Whenever we leave the table, it's not a great thing. So I think that that's sort of what's gone on. Our last Sustainable Development Goal meeting was in New York City, and it was this year. And it was incredibly invigorating to be at the table and hear all of the ideas being hashed about, and then COVID hit. So everything has sort of ground to a halt. We're communicating with other members, but unfortunately, we're seeing such a huge rise in plastic bans that have been passed around the world have been put on hiatus until the end of COVID, and that's very disturbing, because now we're starting to see all of this extra plastic being pushed into our landfills, but also into the oceans, and we're seeing increased amounts of plastics and their breakdown, and that's being seen around the world, not just off the coast of the US and throughout the Caribbean, but off of the Pacific Rim surrounding South America, Africa, etc. So it's been very frustrating to not be able to convene, and we have been diligently working and preparing in the background so that when restrictions are lifted and we can get back to that table, we can start working on creating international standards once again, so that if we pass something here, again in California, that's a bag ban, we're not really going to solve the problem, because if we don't have that same ban along the Pacific Rim, in Canada, in Latin America, then those the results of the lack of law there ends up on our shores. So anyway, I hope you'll come by the CSAFE Foundation booth and say hey, say hello. I am hoping that I'm not seeing any questions or anything, but I would love to have time to chat. Definitely click our button, because we'd love to send you requests for action if we have the opportunity, if there's something that we need help with to pass a ban on shark finning, plastic pollution. Currently, we're very concerned with COVID. This is outside of international meetings. This is something that we're looking at here in the United States, but it'll be affected by the numbers of COVID cases around the world. As we look to develop a vaccine, we just got another. Oh, I have to go to Stage tab. Of course. Oh, here we go. So I have lots of questions. Wow, this is great. There are people out there. So hello, Beth from New York City. And from Bali. Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous. And Mary, hello. Gosh, we have a number of people from Bali. That's fun. Um, okay, David wants to know how all of this is being policed. Very interesting question. And the EU has stepped up to the plate several times when that question has been posed, because often the infringing countries are the ones that have the least amount of money to pay for policing. So EU covers a lot of the cost. The primary policer is Interpol. And of course, there's always, you're always hearing about poaching, and there's always going to be, the cases of, the ones that got away. But it's really important that we get that we get the laws in place so that we can stop 80% of the market. So I hope that answered your question, David, and I'm sorry I didn't answer it earlier. And Elisa, thank you for everything you guys do to support CSAVE and other critical organizations. And and David, again, sorry. So how realistic is it that CITES works at stopping the trade? CITES doesn't work at stopping the trade. They work at implementing the regulations that all member states are bound by. And then we have other agencies that are just dedicated to policing. They police everything from illegal drug trade to, the illegal trade of animals of all kinds, ivory, shark fin, etc. So it's completely unrealistic to think that it's going to stop if we do not have these international regulations in place. And we certainly are very supportive, augment the effort. So I hope that answered your question. Thank you, Brian. I hope everybody goes to the CSAVE booth, please, and definitely give it a click, give the button a click so we can stay in touch and tell you about our effort. I diverted there, just saw that I could communicate with you guys. But yeah, so squalene is a critical ingredient in many of the vaccines that are currently being tested. And squalene is most cheaply obtained through shark liver. So if you are there, but it is available through other things such as olive oil and many other organic and viable sources. However, it's slightly more expensive. So we really need to be on the stick and make sure that a critical vaccine that is going to be dispersed perhaps even more than once per person around the world is not relying upon shark squalene, because it could be absolutely devastating to our shark populations. And as all of you guys know, as divers, it's not just the shark populations, but of course that would be bad enough, but all of the other animals, the fisheries, the collapse of our ecosystems internationally, our marine ecosystems. So that we really need to keep an eye on. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't know if I need to refresh or. Hello from Australia. Hi. I hope you're having a great evening, day. Not sure what time it is there, but so yeah, David, I'd love to know if I answered your question. And so wait, Katerina, I heard something about oh yeah. Oh, so Kat is she's talking about our first CITES, which was in Thailand, where we were tipped off And we were along actually with Marie Levine of Shark Research Institute, and we went and found a group from, well, the delegates from China and Japan who were having a dinner with large briefcases with large amounts of cash in those briefcases. And we were able to document it from outside. But then I was able to run inside with a GoPro. Jay Arlen and I were able to document the members of that sort of clandestine meeting. And the next day, we were offered a security escort out of Thailand. So, you know, you can die happy. That's kind of a bucket list item, to be offered a security escort out of a country because of a conservation maneuver. Anyway, we did not go. We waited to see what the results would be, and we actually were able to get all of the animals the laundry list of animals, including manta rays and hammerheads, that we had gotten listed and passed. We also had them ratified on that final day. So that seemed to be mission accomplished. We were really super excited, super psyched. So anyway, I've gone over, and I appreciate the time that Scuba.Digital has given us. And I so appreciate being with my scuba family. If there are any other questions. Oh, okay, so I have a friendly reminder. We also have an opportunity, if anyone is watching, I'd love people to just kind of give me a thumbs up if they're watching, because I don't see any indicator of how many people are watching. But anyway, we have a weekly publication that comes out, and basically it's just a short synopsis of all the top news, what's going on, challenges, new scientific breakthroughs, new bans, new laws that have been removed, issues of poaching. So David, that would speak to your question on, you know, how reliable people are, or how these programs are. So if you click on that button on the CSAFE booth here, or if you go to csafe.org and sign up for the newsletter, or even Ocean Week in Review, which is one of our pages under what we do, then you'll receive that every Friday. And it's a quick read. Usually it includes maybe 10, 12, 14 short stories, one paragraph with a link to the original source. We try to always vet our sources whenever possible. We use the primary source material, the original paper, the original science, the original whatever. And if we find a good explanation of the original scientific paper, we publish that as well, to make it a bit easier. But in case you just don't want your news created and packaged for you, we try to give you the original source whenever possible. So, hi, Brian. And oh, great. Okay, so people are watching. Phew. I have my wine, but I wasn't sure whether I should be really focusing and trying. I wasn't sure if anybody was watching. Anyway, it is 5:36. I'm not sure. Does anybody have any questions or comments or something? I can only talk at my screen for so long, and I'm just so delighted that you guys are watching and that you cared enough to tune in, and you care about what we're doing to preserve the ocean. We believe so critically in what we're doing, and we work really hard at it. So I hope you guys stay in touch. We're also going to be launching expeditions after the COVID restrictions. We've had them before, and we're going to be having more. Those are great because we get people together. Who care about conservation. It also helps our cause a bit, And, we do things like cleanups underwater, and primarily we also build photo databases so that we can leverage that, so we can send it to kids and other people who need quality photography or video underwater. So thank you, Scott. You're so sweet. I really appreciate it. And Brian, you're so kind. Oh, April, thank you for inviting me. I so appreciate it, and definitely appreciate your friendship. And Juliet, thank you very, very much. And it is 1:30 in the morning in UK, but Ian is still tuned in. So hopefully here's to you, Ian. Ian is one of our long-term board members. I think he's been working with us for over 10 years. So anyway, there's dedication to you. Thank you guys so very much. Much love. And I hope to see you clicking on that button so we can stay in touch, and I can update you with everything we're doing. So namaste, and be well, stay safe.